Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you yet again. We just had an episode with Nick McGowan, and you're like, oh, I wish there was another one. Well, there is, and this is it. This is episode 737. If you go back one, episode 736, you'll catch the first half of my conversation with Nick McGowan. And now we're back with more. And that's fun, right? Are you enjoying that? Yeah, because Nick is the host of the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. He's also a podcast editor, coach. He does all things. He'll even clean your windows for a very high price. But he'll do them, and he's a great guy. He's fun to talk to and a joy to have time with. And I'm hoping that Nick and I can do more of these in the future because, again, I learned so much from him, and I really admire his show. I love how he shows up in this world. He's sarcastic. He's fun, and he makes me smile, and he makes me think, and all of those things are good things to have as a podcaster. So, Nick, thank you for being on the show. We talked in the last episode, the first part of the conversation was geared more around AI. It was also talking about our shared musical background, and both Nick and I love music, and we both come from that same vein, which I love, and we talked about how musical know-how and knowledge can really help your editing to be better. And yeah, we leaned into that. And then we talked about AI and the fact that AI is not a replacement for knowledge when it comes to editing your show. And then just AI creating just a big wall of content to go out there to support the episode. And a lot of it is just crap. Like, it's not anything that we would ever use as a guest on your show when you send us a file folder with 50 clips from the episode, and they're all out of context. They make no sense. You're like, what is this crap? Yeah, we don't use it. And Nick shared his thoughts about that. It was really entertaining. So today we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to go in a different direction now as the conversation continues and talk about more things around podcasting. I love having guest co-hosts come on the show. It's a joy. So here we go. I hope you're enjoying this. Here's more from our friend, Nick McGowan. Again, host of the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show here on the How to Podcast series. Let's continue. Here we go. Here's Nick. So to kick things off, I asked Nick, what do you think podcasters love about podcasting and love about doing a podcast? What are these things? Because we want to focus on the positive. We want to bring this up and say, yeah, these are the things I think podcasters really enjoy about being a podcast creator. Here's what Nick had to say.
There's a lot that it comes to podcasting that people really enjoy. But when you really get down to it, there's probably a handful of things or like one or two things that they really, really, really love. Like I found that most podcasters can really have a great conversation, even if they're an introvert. And even if they're like a deep introvert, because this is still their space. I mean, this probably ties into what you do in a sense. Like, this is your space. This is your environment. You control your domain. And you invite and welcome people in, but this is still yours and you can control it and all of that. And I think when we look at those things where we're like, well, I'm really not good at this, quick answer is just offload it to AI and not think about it anymore. But if we look at what we're not really good at, we can then tie in other partnerships or relationships with other businesses to be able to help, and we can then also help them. Like, sometimes businesses forget, especially small businesses, like, barter with somebody. Like, truthfully, I have some help that I need for some graphics and some admin-y type stuff. I would love to be able to barter with somebody. And this is something that's been percolating for the past couple of days where I'm just going to put that out there to the universe. Somebody's going to come up at some point. They're going to be like, I really need help with my podcast. I can't do all the things that I can do, but I can certainly help with graphics and I can help with admin work, and beautiful. Sometimes that works out fantastically. Sometimes there's a little bit of money. Sometimes it just doesn't, but to be able to actually look and see what are those resources and what can we do takes us just not going for the easy route of like, oh, well, I'll just pump it into AI. And I can almost guarantee, and I haven't had as many of these conversations, I'd like to. I wonder if when people get stuff back, if they go, well, that's not really what I wanted, but AI gave it to me, so that's fine. And then just go along and then just put the thing in where they're like, but. And again, that kind of brings up, like, you don't know what was done to say, well, the recipe calls for more salt or a little, cook it a little longer or something instead of being like, why is this mushy and bland? Because that's what you did. And I see that there's a lot of people that are like, you just need a better prompt for AI. No, you don't. You really don't. You need to think outside of that and go, AI is just another tool, just like everything else we use. Like, I appreciate that I can use the Adobe tools, and there's a lot to learn in the Adobe tools, a whole lot. But also, knowing those skills, I can bring them to other DAWs or other, platforms and be able to translate that stuff. If not, if you're just pumping stuff into AI, like, go ahead, recreate it. You can't. You absolutely cannot.
And then this brings up another part too, where podcasters are actually replacing themselves with an automated version of themselves. And there was one podcast I was listening to, and the podcaster was openly bragging about the fact that she has a digital copy of herself, and people reach out to her through her website, and her digital avatar handles all the questions and does all the things so that she doesn't have to bother with the peasants who come and want to talk to her about her podcast. Those listeners, they're so annoying that they keep showing up and wanting to talk to me. If I could just create a digital version of me, and then I don't have to waste my time talking to my audience. Like, oh, wait a minute, that's not what we want. We don't want to do that. That's not what podcasting was designed to be. Efficient and disconnected and what? Yeah. So Nick responds.
I feel like I can hear old creative directors and marketing managers I've worked with over the time, like, but brand awareness, yes. And also context, like, that is bad PR in that sort of way. I do think it's really interesting how there are people that will jump to the AI stuff and will build out stuff like that. Like, even, I don't know, 15 years ago, like, we're all trying to build chatbots. Like, somebody gets your website, you want to build out this whole schema and like the whole conversation architecture and all that stuff. And from a nerd perspective, some of that was fun because I enjoy the process of like creating those things. And like, some of it was also so stupid and didn't actually help. And I think there are times where people try to act like they're a lot bigger than they are. And they'll build out this whole chatbot in hopes that somebody will go, oh, wow, this person must be really busy. And they might be, but I don't know if they're busy living the life that they want to live as much as they're just busy because the world tells them to be a hustle and grind culture type person. And they're creating these things to show this side of it. And look, I've done that stuff before. I've tried to be bigger than I was. I did that a lot in my 20s. I had a couple companies then that we tried to be a lot bigger. And in all reality, there were some moments that were really nice sized that I remember kind of discounting myself. Like, I had a social media marketing company in the early 2010s. And at one point we had about 500 clients and we had, I don't know, 40, 45 people on the team. A lot of them were outsourced and overseas and built a solid team and all. And I remember thinking like, yeah, but that's nothing. We have to really go after these bigger companies and we have to have like 100+ people and all of that. And like, that was nonsense. That was a nice size freaking company. But I also built like 40,000-foot walls around me and it basically drove me to almost suicide. Right now, I'm a solopreneur that at times has contractors that I bring in at different parts of different projects. For the most part, I am really excited and happy about the work that I do because I handpick the people that I work with and don't just take on the nonsense clients that I don't want to work with. I do occasionally because like they wave money and I want to help them. And then I learn again, like, don't you do it. And, you have to learn that every once in a while. But I don't hide behind, like, I'm not some giant corporation trying to do these things. And that's actually part of the business that I have is like, I want to help other people that are solo thought leaders, podcasters that are trying to do this thing on their own, who are just starting off, or maybe they're a little further along and they're like, look, I have different things going on in my business. I do need to build somewhat of a team to help me with things because I'm dropping the ball on certain things. Great. We all get to those points at different points as you continue down this path. But it's not always a thing that we have to do. So I think some people will create the facade that they're a lot bigger in hopes that it makes them look a lot bigger. And most times I found that a lot of those people just don't know what they're doing. Like they really don't.
Successful people are busy people. That's it. As long as you're busy, you're a success. You could be making $0, but you got this great looking website and you have these avatars and you have all this AI stuff that just makes you look like you're bigger than you are. And then people look behind the curtain and go, wait a minute. The illusion of grandeur, right? And how's that serving you? How's that keeping that facade going? Is that working for you? Well, maybe not.
Actually, back to music. I don't know if you guys have Sam Ash or had Sam Ash in Canada. I'm pretty sure you have Guitar Center. So they were like, it was Sam Ash and Guitar Center sort of thing, like CVS, Walmart, whatever. And I worked at Sam Ash a number of years, different times as a musician. You know, you bounce in and out of that sort of stuff. And I remember being at Ash and hearing different people come in and play. So I ran the guitar department at one point and was primarily in guitars and live sound and all that. And there was an older guy that had been there for, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years or something, and would just drop these little truth bombs as he walked by to get coffee. And every time he'd be so just calm, almost like how I'm sure you do at times, like, oh, here's this little nugget. And you'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, come on back, John. What are you doing? And he was just like getting coffee. And at one point, there was some kid that was playing like extremely loud and some really high gain, like Dimebag Darrell crunchy amp. It was like a diesel or something we had. And he was just like, scoop all the mids, turn all the gain up. And had some like Jackson, whatever, you know, just like edgy pointed guitar. And he's just banging at it. Like he's playing drums on a damn thing, just like, dun, 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 dun. And I'm a metalhead. I enjoy metal, but also, yo, bro, chill out. Like he was just going at it and he was so loud. And this guy, John, was walking by to get coffee. And he was like, it's always the loud ones that have no idea what they're doing. The ones you don't hear are the ones that know exactly what's going on. And I was like, wait a minute.
There's a lot of wisdom in a guitar store. I got to tell you, I've spent my fair share of time in a guitar store. My wife does not like me going in that direction of that part of the city at all. It's a big hit to the bank account. But, oh, play that again. That's a hit. Play that again. Nick, tell me that one again.
It's always the loud ones that have no idea what they're doing. The ones you don't hear are the ones that know exactly what's going on. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And there was some other guy at the other end, because we obviously had like all the Kramers and all that, like on the one side, like all the metal stuff. And then we had all the Fender and Gibsons and whatever. And we had some guy that sat down with like a twin reverb, turned it on, barely turned it to like 1. And I think he pulled out a semi-hollow body. We may have even pulled one from like the PRS side behind the counter or something. And he's just going along. And when that dude stopped for a second to, I don't know, scratch his butt or whatever, you could hear just like this faint, like little jazz stuff like going on, like Pat Metheny style stuff. And we're like, what? And it was just the timing. Like, I don't even know if that dude knew that there was another guy there because we couldn't hear over the high gain guy. Maybe he did because, you know, he was observant. But I remember being like, man, that is so true. That was like 20, 25 years ago, something like that, where I think about that now. There are a lot of people that make so much noise and they're making noise to just make the noise. Like I was talking with somebody, a podcaster a few days ago. I was like, I paid this person to help me set up my podcast and do all these things because they looked like they knew what they're doing, said they did all this, and ultimately they didn't really help me. And most everything they did was based on AI and automation. And it was like dude bro marketer stuff. And I took a look at their show and what they were about, and I could see some of the stuff where I'm like, yeah, this is a little off. But to most people, they don't know. And especially the podcasters, they're like, oh, well, this person's making a lot of noise. And they look like they know what they're doing. Ask questions and try to get to the truth of things. Like I still have a lot of stuff that I have to work on with my show. I've also messed up a lot of stuff. The first year, I really pushed for the podcast, marketing, and did a lot of things wrong. And then at one point got really, really upset and sickened of social media and pulled everything down. got all my social media gone, pulled my website and was like, I'm just going to have these conversations. That hurt. That really sucked. But I also mentally needed that. And when I came back and had a website rebuilt and started to get back on social media, it was more intentional. And now everything is focused specifically on search engine optimization. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to be able to put in and figure out how this stuff works. And I've watched my search, the amount of people that get to my site based on search, literally double in the past 3 months, where over the first, I'd say, handful months of the year, the first 2 months or so, it was kind of trickling along and had some ups and downs and some things that I need to work on and all that. So I teach people how to do this stuff based on the lived experience, but also the things that I'm learning of what's going on. And none of it's based on AI or automations, but they're all process things that help that some people just don't know about, like even a project management tool. Like, I don't care if you use Monday or Asana or Todoist or something, or even just a Word doc that's like a checklist. If you can figure out what your process is, that makes it so much easier to be able to do all the other things without going like, oh, I just can't do this. Just give it all to ChatGPT.
Basically, anytime you put anything between you and the audience, something that separates you, keeps you distant, like I mentioned, that person has an avatar because they're annoyed by listeners who want to talk to them. They're like, I don't have time for my listeners, so I'm going to create this fake avatar. And when you come to my website, It looks like me, it sounds like me, but it's not me. Anytime that we put distance between ourselves and our audience, it defeats the purpose of podcasting.
Yeah.
I really don't like people who are trying to get as far away from their audience as possible. It's just counterproductive to all things that makes podcasting unique and fun and creative and exciting as a listener to know that I have access to my favorite podcaster. If you put things between you and your audience, it's like you becoming a Hollywood star, big fancy musician. Yeah, behind the velvet rope. You just stay back over there and don't get too close because I don't really want to interact with you, but I want your attention. I want the results without having time with you. And I don't think that's what podcasting was meant to be.
Well, big time. Big time. We're hurting ourselves as creatives. We're hurting ourselves as humans. We're also missing the point, like in a big way. Like a lot of times people are pushing to create all these different pieces of content and promote themselves all over the place because the hustle and grind culture and all. They're also trying to get themselves known. They're trying to, in some ways, they have good intentions to be able to get the conversations out there. But they're missing the boat on having the key and crucial conversations specifically with the right people and setting yourself up so people can find you, so they can find those resources instead of just trying to get in front of all the masses of the people. But as creatives, if we're not doing that work, or at least understanding how the pieces are created, then we're hurting ourselves. I've got a good friend who, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months ago, put out a song, and this guy just creates a lot of music and puts it out. And he was a singer of mine way back in the day, and we've been friends for like 20 plus years or so. He's a great songwriter, but primarily like a first position acoustic player, and knows some theory and all, and can, he can talk about the things. I want to go from this chord to this, et cetera, et cetera. But can't actually play all the instruments, doesn't have access to all the instruments. And at one point he sent me a song and was like, hey, I did this all with AI. ... Are we still friends? I was like, yeah, we're always going to be friends, but like, why? And I could understand that he didn't have the skills to be able to do all that and to create it, and also wanted to test and try it because it's new and all this stuff. But I can feel for those people in that sort of way that are like, I don't have the skill set to be able to do it. This guy recently put out a new song, and I think he's put out a couple in between these two songs I'm talking about. But as soon as he sent it to me, I was like, and he was like, and I did not use AI. I found some producer. He did all the instruments and the production and the editing. He basically sent me the track back, and I just recorded over it. I didn't ask him for pricing, but I'm pretty sure that probably cost him, I don't know, $200, maybe $300. Maybe he found somebody who was like an ex-rock star, no longer touring right now, and maybe it cost him $600. I don't know. Maybe $50. Who cares? whatever, even if it's $1,000 for me to get that whole song out there. For some people, I might go, wow, that's too much for me to be able to do it. I appreciate that my friend took the extra step to be resourceful and go, how do I use real instruments? How do I actually connect with other creatives? Maybe I was a part of that thought. Like maybe he was like, Nick, got into my head. Maybe I wasn't at all. And I don't care either way. Like I have no ego with that at all. But I just do appreciate when people go, let me just pause for a second. And I think all this ties into the work that I do as a mindset and self-mastery mentor. The real reason why I have the podcast is like, how do we as people just be better at what we're here to do and uncover more of ourselves? It's not like we have to fix ourselves. We have to uncover more of that and go, well, what do I like? What do I not like? I've learned about myself that I legitimately have to fuck around and find out. That's just how I operate. That's also how I iterate. Like that's what I do when I create. I'll create a riff and I'll mess around, and sometimes I'll have things like years later come back and I'll be like, oh, this whole other section or whatever. And like I have to continue to mess around with things. And as creatives, I want to say for most creatives, that's a major part of how we operate. Even if you don't think about it like that. Some people will kind of have things dropped in, or they'll have a download of a thing. We all have that at different times, or something just kind of pops up, or maybe we kind of hear it in the air in a sense. But then being able to mess around with it and figuring it out and looking how we do that same thing from a podcasting perspective. But to get back to the basic of just have the conversation you're here to have. And if you don't know what that conversation is that you're here to have, then start with that. Figure out what's actually going on and what you want to have, and then build from there.
We talk about in podcasting knowing your why. That's important when you're first starting your show. But then there's also the strategy side of podcasting and understanding the strategy for your show and what's your strategic goal for your podcast. And Nick shares his.
Something that took me years to understand and kind of smack myself in the head with it is having a strategy in place. If we don't have a strategy, we don't know who our ideal audience is, who our ideal listener is, then all the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So anything you do with AI and all of that, it just doesn't do anything for you. So just get back to the basics of it, understand what these people are looking for, how we can have our unique angle of the conversation, and then what sort of assets do they need? Do they need 30 random clips that have zero context? Most likely they don't, but I don't know. Are you running a show that talks about terrible marketing? Then yes, they need those 30 clips. That's what they need. Exactly. Let's rip them all apart.
Exactly. Like here's the best of the worst. Do these if you don't want to succeed in podcasting. Here's my new podcast, everybody. Woo! I also said to Nick that I was really enjoying his show when we were chatting, and he has interviews. But I said I really, really like when you, Nick, as the host, do a solo episode, because I feel like I don't have to share my time with you and with your guest. It's just me and you as a listener of your show.
For real.
And I was thanking Nick, and I'm like, Nick, I just love what you do on your podcast. But whenever you have a chance, Nick, I just want more of you. More of you as the host and no guest, because I just feel there's a bond there. And this was Nick's response. It was meaningful.
I appreciate you saying that. First off, that's good feedback. I get feedback at times from my community of like, hey, what do you want me to get deeper into these sort of things? What have you? And I've actually heard from different people. We do want some more solo episodes. Like you go deeper into these topics, etc. I've said even just a few minutes ago about having a strategy. I actually work with people to figure out what their podcast thought leadership strategy is that's based on their core topics, and then be able to build content directly off of those core topics, correlated with keyword research of what people are actually searching for.
So Nick and I were talking about this, and the conversation kind of switched, and we kind of went into a direction of talking about more guesting side of podcasting and how Nick approaches the guest portion of his podcast. And it was an interesting kind of diversion away from where we were going in the conversation, and I loved it. And it was a great way to end off the episode. And Nick shares his path and his own journey about how he's using this in his own podcast. Here's Nick's thoughts.
I'm eating my own medicine, and it takes a lot of work to do, and a lot of it. So part of my I'd say the rest of this year and probably the early part, maybe even most of next year, will be a lot more solo episodes that tie directly into that strategy. But the way that I look at bringing guests on, and I have guests on the show pretty often, and I try to get into a mixture every once in a while where it's like every 3 or 4, I'll do a solo. Sometimes that works. Sometimes life happens and, whatever. But having that strategy that I've been building and working on, there's more that I can kind of plug and play in a sense, be it a solo episode or a guest. Because basically what I think about, and I guess this is kind of the premise of us getting into the guesting stuff. From the guest perspective, I think about how do I bring people into the conversation? I'm not just having somebody on to interview them. There are certain shows, and maybe whoever's listening, their show is like, I specifically interview people to interview them. Yes, but I can almost guarantee there's depth to it where you're interviewing them because they're part of your conversation.
Now, I know you love strategy, and Nick talks strategy. He's going to give you his strategy for guesting. So here you go. This is exactly what people are like, oh, tell me, how do you do what you do? What's your strategy? How do you do this? Here's Nick's around guesting. Here you go.
I have a conversation specifically about mindset, self-mastery, and transformation. Those are my core topics. And anybody I bring onto the call or any episode I do has to fit in one of those buckets, not in a black and white way. Like, you could probably look at my show and maybe get like, all right, I see that in this episode, he's really talking more so about mindset, or this one about self-mastery or whatever. But the idea isn't for it to be black and white. We're like, today we talk about mindset, blah, and we go through it. This is to be able to weave things in specifically to primarily like pillar episodes and pillar blog posts that tie into our core buckets and all of that stuff. But when I bring people onto the show, we have to have one of these conversations. If we're going to talk about anything that's outside of it that doesn't tie back to one of these conversations, then there's no point to it. Maybe that's just somebody I network with, or I have a prospecting call or whatever, or we just don't talk at all. Like I get messages every single week from different PR companies and individuals trying to reach out to be on the show. And it's really difficult to get on my show because I'm intentional.
And you get these calls and these emails from people like, hey, I got the best guest ever. He or she does this thing that has nothing to do with your show. And they would be awesome for your podcast. You should have them on. And you're like, have you even listened to my show?
Yeah. And you reach a point where it's just like, you get a mess of this stuff after a while. I have some random ones at times. Like I've had an architect that reached out and I was like, why would you want to talk on my show? Doesn't make any sense. So right off the bat, if I don't think from a strategy perspective, I might say, oh, cool, it's an architect. Great, come on and let's talk about life. Yeah, but can that architect talk about mindset, self-mastery, or transformation? I mean, there's an argument probably to be made for all of that, depending on their context and their situation. They were just trying to push the work that they do. So it wasn't like one of those things where this architect had gone through a really traumatic experience and a difficult chapter in life to then figure out really all they wanted to do was to be able to help develop unique homes or something. I would be all about that. But that's not what was pitched to me. That's not what it was. And if I didn't know what those core topics were and what conversations I wanted to have, I could have just easily said, yeah, come on in. Let's just talk about all the things. Diversity is also a major component of what I look for. And I'm not talking about just like racial, though I do try to be really, really, really specific in that. Like if I have somebody reach out, and I mean this in the most PC way I can, if somebody reaches out to me who's kind of like a basic standard white person, I go, great. Well, who out there is a BIPOC who can talk about this that has a different angle maybe, but also somebody that didn't grow up in the exact same area that I did or the exact same way to be able to talk about things. So I look at diversity from color of skin, but also the color of skin and the history behind that, but also where people were born, where they were raised, where they lived, their transition into a new country, or all of those things. There's a lot of diverse experiences that we can bring into these conversations instead of just having the same old conversation with the same type of people around us because we're just the same exact person as other people.
If you want to see what a podcaster believes in, scroll through their past guests on their show and find the commonalities. Are they all kind of like the host? Are they all a kind of a representation of the host of the show? You're going to get a sense of the tone of the show by who comes on. That's been from day one for the How to Podcast series. I wanted this to be a variety of people coming on the show with different perspectives, different backgrounds from around the world, every representation possible on the show so that we can get a wide view of podcasting so that we're not just talking to one specific group. Yes, we want to have a narrowed audience. We want to know who we're talking to, but at the same time, not at the expense of people who are looking for a voice that they can resonate with. Not everyone's going to resonate with me. I understand that, but I'm trying to be as open as possible on the show and bring as many people on the show as I can. So as you listen to this and you're like, Dave, I don't see anybody on your show that looks like or sounds like me or comes from my view, my world, then please, howtopodcast.ca. You and I need to get together because I need you on the show to represent your community and talk from your experience and share what podcasting means to you. It's something I value deeply because the more people in podcasting that sound like, look like, act like, come from the place that you've come from, the better. So I love that Nick is bringing this up.
It's important for us as podcasters to be able to invite other people in to have a different angle and a unique angle as part of our conversation. And then also gating things. Like I don't have everybody who reaches out to be on the show. It would be such a mess if I did, such a mess. I also don't have an open form where people can just put all their information in and submit. At some point, I might put that on the website where there's like a guest list, but I've had the show for 4.5 years and it's never been too much. I'm easily able to go through and go, this is trash and delete it or add to spam or just shoot messages back, etc. I also do a lot of things based on templates. So we've talked about AI a lot. So if I have things I need to respond back to people, then I'll grab different templates that I have. I have an Excel sheet that I save everything in. I'll just pop them in there and throw it in and make some changes to it. But for the most part, it's like, great. Well, thank you for reaching out. How'd you come across the show? What led you to think I want to have a conversation with this guy? And in particular, what do you want to talk about? Send, that sort of stuff. So I think we can save ourselves headaches and like, what do I have to write here with doing some simple things like that. But when I have people that I have already figured out, yeah, I want to have you on the show, I will then actually send them my booking link. And that booking link has a whole process to it. And I'm particular in how that process shows from the user's perspective. I was recently on a show with somebody who had a clear process in what they did. Like I had to fill out a form. That's cool. I'm a nerd and a process guy. So I look at this stuff like, what could we do differently? Or is there anything I could take from this or whatever? And by the time I set up the podcast, I don't know, it was maybe like a month and a half later or something, I was on the show. But the calendar invite just said podcast. So like weeks later, when I look on my calendar and go, this week I have these client meetings, I have these interviews, I have this project to do, I have this thing, and I have a podcast. Okay. And there's like really no other information in there. A person is trying to figure out what their process is and all of that. So I look at that stuff holistically and go, well, what's the whole process look like? So when somebody signs up to be a guest on my show, they've gone through and they've filled out all the information, which then is sent to me in an email and saved on the form on the website. And then I go through and I grab all that info. But the whole point to getting those specific pieces of information is to be able to build out the show notes and also to have an understanding of like what are things we're going to talk about. This person's already been approved. The reason why they got to that point is because I've already said yes. And the reason why I said yes is because I've listened to their stuff. I've watched how they've talked about things. I understand the depth that they can get into. And the reason why I point those three things out is a lot of people will reach out without giving a reference.
For me, that's what I do. I use my pre-chat. So if you've been a guest on my podcast, any of my different shows, I do a pre-call with everyone. I want to connect with you first before I have you on my show. Yeah, I'm filtering you in the moment. I'm kind of going through like, can I have a conversation with this person? It's a lot of pressure to meet somebody cold, hit record, and hope for the best. So for me personally, that's my process. And again, that's why I do the show. Nick's sharing his process. I'm sharing my process. It's about giving you options as a podcaster. There's not just a single way. Even though the gurus are going to tell you this is the way, there's multiple ways. So take from Nick, borrow from me, whatever you want to do, but understand that there's options for you. There's not one single path here. No matter what your guru tells you, you're not going to get that here on the How to Podcast series. You get the chance to pick and choose what works for you, because podcasting is a choose your own adventure, and the choice is yours, not imposed on you. It's your choice.
Like, I have a lot of guests that'll reach out and say, hey, I do a thing and I'd love to be on your show to talk about a thing. Great. But show me something. Like, I want to see how you talk about things. I want to hear how you talk about things. As a host, I want to know, how do you connect with me as the host? But most importantly, what are you going to give to the audience? And not like what promo or discount codes, but like, is there going to be value to it? I don't want to pat myself on the back here, but I'm pretty sure I'm a pretty good guest when it comes to being on podcasts, because my focus is value. I want people to be able to take something from it and go, how do I incorporate this into what I do? Or how does what I do correlate with what this guy was saying? And we shouldn't take anything as just gospel or just matter of fact. We should take it in and go, what do I do with it from here? But I think we also need to understand, what does it look like from the different angles? What does it look like from the host perspective, the guest perspective, the audience perspective, the listener's perspective, even down to things like what happens with your show notes when they get distributed out? Are you putting like 100 billion characters into the show notes and none of it's actually going out anywhere, or it looks like a jumbled mess? Or are you barely putting anything in that it's not helping you? And God, we could probably go down a whole different path specifically just for show notes, because I think it's vastly important to have your transcript in that specifically for SEO purposes, but only if you're doing it through a website that's then distributing everywhere else, instead of like, I've seen different, I don't know exactly which websites do it, because for the most part, like Apple will cut you off, Spotify will cut you off, but there's somewhere it's like 40,000 words because it's all the transcript. And from an SEO perspective on your website, that is gold, especially if cleaned up and appropriately set up and all. But like, that looks like a jumbled mess in the show notes on most things, unless you actually set it up right, all that sort of stuff. So guest-wise, I think it's important for us to understand and be intentional with the conversations we want to have, and then intentional in the entire process. Most guests that I have on don't really ever talk about the process, because I take that as a good sign. But I've had a handful of different guests who are also podcast hosts that are like, man, this was stupidly easy and like incredibly clear. I'm like, cool, thanks. Was there anything that wasn't? Because I'm always looking for feedback.
So Nick and I jump back into kind of that conversation around AI reaching out to us as fake emails and trying to get on the show and all that fun stuff. And yeah, we kind of slid back into it in the conversation, but it was fun. I've had somebody email me and they're like, hi, Stephanie, love the How to Podcast series. I'm like, well, Stephanie's not in today and I don't know who she is, but if she hangs around my house, I'm calling the cops because I have no idea who Stephanie is. My name is Dave. Every episode starts with my name. So you haven't listened because you haven't heard the very first minute of my show. So that's a quick, no, thank you. So,
Yeah. Or they title it, hi, name of your show.
Yeah, fill in.
Hi, the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show.
Yeah. Or insert name here. I've had that one.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
first name.
Wow. I love that episode. Insert episode title here. I'm like, oh, come on, people. Come on. Let's go.
So I've had a couple of those situations where I felt I need to respond. I've actually had, I think, 2 or 3 people over the course of the past 4.5 years that I've responded to where they've responded back like, oh man, thank you. I appreciate that. Because some people have, something was messed up with their MailChimp or their MailerLite or whatever. And I can typically see if somebody's trying or if they're just like trying to be really sleazy and automated with the things. Like if there's anything that actually ties into what the podcast is about. Like I have outreach documents I use for people. So I help people get onto shows or get guests for their shows. And I also do my own podcast tour and help other people do a tour. And I have a series of 4 emails that will go out, an intro and then 3 follow-ups. And when I look at the documents, they basically look like Mad Libs because there's all like little spots. You need to add adverbs, nouns, or whatever. But really to say like this is customizing specifically toward this show while keeping to the same framework and psychology that goes along with it. And I've had stuff that's messed up at times, but I always try to be as customized and specific to that show as possible and say this is what the audience can expect. But those people that have responded back that are like, oh man, thank you, I missed that or whatever, that's great. There are certain times where I see that people will have something that looks custom, but generically custom. And then I'll see at the bottom, it'll say unsubscribe. And as soon as I see that unsubscribe, I know I'm part of a list. And I know I didn't give you access to my email address to add me to part of your list. So I'll typically just delete. But if I get another one, I'm going to send it to spam. And if I get a third one, I'm going to fish you. I'm going to tag it as phishing because you're not getting it. Like I've had a few people reach out literally on like 4 different emails I have. One is like a personal that I've had since, I don't know, I was like 18. How did you get that? And why do you think it's appropriate to send a message here? And it's like an A/B test at times where I'll get one email through one and then another starter from another. And it's like, I can see that you're A/B testing, but you're clearly not looking at your list. You're not looking at the data. You're not understanding what this is, which goes back to the systemic problem. I think people are trying to just move too quickly instead of like understanding what are we trying to do here and just trying to blast this stuff out. And I do think we need to audit ourselves every so often. Like I use Asana as my project management tool. And I have a guest template and a solo episode template. So whenever I'm doing a new episode, I'll open that, duplicate it, create all the information and blah, blah, blah. And I was even thinking yesterday, there's some things in here that I want to clean up. I think it's been about maybe a year since I've gone back and cleaned that stuff up and just tighten those things up. And great. That stuff will then probably lead into something else where I go, how do I also clean this up a little bit? Is that a thing that needs to be cleaned up? Have I heard any problems with anything? Or have I seen any problems with anything? And that could take maybe an hour, collectively. But that hour can save a lot of aggravation and also do what I think those people who are creating the AI chatbots or whatever will do, where it shows like this was a seamless process. This is great. The production is great. I see how everything is set up. And again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back because I always have more to grow and learn and work on. But being able to set those things up just takes a little bit of thought to it and then iterations over and over and over. And likewise with the guests, if we can just accept everybody, or if we know these are the main conversations I have, I tie it back to core topic buckets like you do in keyword research. Like what are the main primary things we're talking about? And if we can fit in one of those, great. But then the process from there, the type of guest that I like to have on is somebody who's a little bit more elevated and also real. And I want to set that level of professionalism while also just making the whole thing easy. Because why make it difficult if you don't have to? And I don't need people to like give it, a whole thesis on things. I do have 8 questions that I send out to people. That's part of my process. It comes out in an email notifications. It's also part of the calendar invite. Like I have it in a couple different spots because those things trickle out. And for the most part, those are there just as a vibe. Like this is what I kind of talk about. And like if I have to ask these questions, I will, but there's some flavor to it. And I've actually had people respond back with like full answers where they've written like blog posts for each of those. And I actually state in there, you don't have to. This is just the type of questions we can get into. But then I understand this person probably didn't really fully read it, but they were also eager to give me everything they could.
So for me, I don't do any like questions like Nick is talking about that he does. I don't do that at all.
Yeah.
I do my pre-interview and that's it. So again, there's so many different approaches to all this. So please hear us. Pick something that works for you. Try it, test it, get feedback. What Nick's doing is perfect. It works really well for his show. So do that. Take what you can from this conversation, apply it where you can, test it, measure it, tweak it, change it, keep learning, keep trying until you land on what works for your show. So let's give Nick the final word here as we wrap up. Where to connect with him and all the fun stuff, we do at the end of the episode. here's Nick kind of helping us wrap up our conversation today.
The best two ways to go about it are my two websites. So nickmcgowan.com. That'll also get you to the podcast website, or just go to themindsetandselfmasteryshow.com. And that podcast website will get you to nickmcgowan.com and back and forth. And on nickmcgowan.com, that's really where I work a lot with my podcasters. And that talks about my three pillars, the resonate, rank, and reach. Because I've realized over the course of the time, if we know who our ideal audience is, we're strategic in who we're talking to, and we can resonate with them, then we set ourselves up to be able to be found and ultimately searchable and rankable within Google, other search engines, and other podcast directories, and different spots that podcasts will show up. We will inevitably reach the right audience. And that's a whole cycle, but it starts with us understanding what that strategy is and what our core topics are. And I have a free training that's on the website too. It comes with different resources, and you can certainly reach out. I do a lot of mentoring. I absolutely love mentoring. And most of my clients know, even if we have a 60-minute session, if you still have questions or want me to get deep into things, I will pour a lot of stuff through text and email. And I don't like to share this 100%, but some of my good clients know, like if they ask me for 10 minutes, they'll typically get like a free half-hour session because I'm a nerd and just can't. I can't not keep helping with certain things. But I always offer up free podcast strategy sessions. It's totally free. It's not one of those things where I get you onto a call to try to sell you on things. Look, I offer mentoring. I have a program. I offer a lot of resources. But if I can just help you with certain things because you've got some quick questions, great. And if it makes sense for us to continue after that with a solo session or a 4-pack of sessions, we'll talk about that. But I do encourage the people that have questions and trying to work through things to reach out. Let's set up a podcast strategy. It's a free session. And if it makes sense to just do the things that I've said from there, or you go, look, this guy had some great ideas and I want to work with him, whatever you want to do, but those are free sessions. And I have to say, Dave, the people that actually take advantage of those free sessions, those are the people that are really serious about the work they're doing. It's typically the people that are like, I've wanted to do that thing, and then they just never did it. And a lot of that stems back to fear, just the fear of the unknown. I don't know how to change from this podcast host to this, or how to go from audio to video or whatever. And they'll just kind of stagnate in that. I challenge people, reach out, let's have a conversation, even if it's just through email. Like, hey, I want to have I want to get some answers to some things. I'm always happy to help.
Yeah. And that's why I love having people like you on the show, Nick, because anytime I can find a great resource for podcasters, I want to shout it and let everybody know about it so that they don't have to podcast alone. There's too many podcasters trying to Google their way through content creation and getting this podcast up and running. Talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Spend time with them. Nick, I can verify everybody is not an AI bot. He'll actually talk to you. He'll help you. So it's great.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you so much for doing this. Again, let's keep in touch. I'd love to have you back again in the future. Keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Everybody, all information as always in the show notes. Go check out Nick's show. It is fantastic. And there'll be maybe some more solo episodes coming up in the future, which I'm a big fan of. Woo!
Next one's going to be a solo episode.
Comes
out next Thursday for Mental Health Awareness Month.
See? There you go. My request has already been granted. So that's great. I'll be listening. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for being here. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's Nick McGowan again. Great to have him on the show. If you are thinking about being a guest on my show, then yes. The answer is yes. Okay, I'll just say yes. I'm looking for guests, co-hosts to come on the show and share your unique journey, your perspective on podcasting. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have 25 years in podcasting. You don't have to have 10 awards, be in a hall of fame thing or whatever. You don't need any of that stuff. You just got to have a love for passion and a passion for podcasting. You got to have a love for podcasters and a heart that beats for content creators like us, like you and me. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you to come on the show and promote your podcast. First of all, we want more people to come follow you and our audience at the How to Podcast series. Our family here, we are very supportive. So please come on the show. You can reach me at howtopodcast.ca. I'd love to connect with you. Whether you come on the show or not, that's fine. I do want you on the show, but we can always have just a virtual coffee and talk podcasting, you and I, outside of the podcast. It doesn't have to be an episode. It could just be us chatting. If you're looking for podcast support, howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for being here. And thank you for listening to these 2 episodes back to back. And I hope these help. I hope that some of the things we talk about in here really speak to you as a podcaster as well. So reach out to Nick. He's a great guy. And I'd love to talk to you as well over at howtopodcast.ca. Take care. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Talk soon.